Today I am going to discuss stepwise project planning and software project management. So first of all, these are the contents of today's talk. So first of all, I will tell you provide you overview about project planning, and after that, we are going to discuss various steps which are involved in project planning. So coming to this project planning, so project planning is basically an aspect of project management which compromises of various processes. That means whenever we are going to make any project, any mechanical project or any computer science project or EC project, any project, then first of all, this planning is most important before starting the project implementation. Okay, so the aim of these processes is to ensure various project tasks are well coordinated. So when we plan or when we follow these processes, that basically ensures all the various project tasks are uh, going in sequence way, and they are well coordinated, as well as they also meet the various aspect objectives including timely completion of the project. So if we plan and go accordingly, then definitely the time as well as the cost, which basically the most important factors of project management and planning as well as implementation that achieved. Coming to the stepwise project planning, so these are the steps which are involved in project planning. So whenever we are going to make any project, so we'll have to follow these steps. So first, so zero step is basically a step project. Then step one is identify project scope and objectives. Second one is identify project infrastructure. Step third is analyze project characteristics. And step four is identify project products and activities. Step five is estimate efforts for each activity. Step six is identify activity risk. Seventh step is allocate resources. Step 8 is review or publicize plan. Step 9 and 10 is basically ninth one is execute plan, and 10th one is lower level of planning. So now I am going to discuss all the steps in detail. First of all, just look at this diagram. So these are showing it is showing basically the stepwise project planning. So as I told you, after selecting the project, then the step is to identify the various scopes and objectives of the project, and after the identifying it, now next one is identify project infrastructure. So we'll have to identify the infrastructure which are needed or which can be supported. Then the third step is we can after that we have to analyze the different features or characteristics, and then next one is we'll have to identify the products and activities, and fifth step is estimate effort for each activity, and after estimating efforts for each activities, we'll have to identify different risks which are involved with each activities. And in seventh step, we locate the resources for these. And next step is we will review all the plans and then publicize it. And after this review and publicize, now whatever the plans which we have been made, that will be executed in the step number 9, and parallelly there is a last step, that is low level planning is also done while executing the plan. So already told you about this step 0. That is basically not the main part of project planning. This is basically the selection of project. So it is outside the main project. So while we are going to select any project, we do the feasibility study. That means either that project, we basically check the feasibility of that project, whether that project is feasible or not. So we do in three ways. First one is technical analysis, then feasibility analysis, that is based on resources. Second one is economically, that is based on cost. So we also go and see about the cost and all which are involved. And third one is operationals, means whether the employees who are in that organization, they are able to do that project, they are able to complete that project on time or not. Then after selecting the project, step one, in step one, we identify the scope and objective of the project. So we identify the objectives and scopes of the project and measures the effectiveness of the project. So we get the objectives, various objectives of the project, and measure the effectiveness in terms of quality of the project. So we can see the quality or check the quality by measuring the performance as well as by measuring the predictive. So these involves various sub steps. Next one is establish a project authority, means we'll have to assign or we'll have to make a boss or leader of that project. So it is very necessary. We will lead it. So identify the authority of the project. We'll have to identify the authority also. Then stack analysis. In stack analysis, we identify various stakeholders which may involved or which are involved in the project. So stakeholders are basically who they basically interest in the project. So we'll have to identify it, analyze it. With the team, we want to check either uh, means internal stakeholders as well as external stakeholders. Then next sub step is change objectives based on the stakeholder analysis. So after analyzing all the stakeholders and after coming the suggestions from these stakeholders, we can change our objectives accordingly. And if these suggestions are not satisfied, then we don't have to need all the change to objectives. And the next step is establish method of communication with all the parties. So we'll have to also satisfy the customer requirement, what is the customer basically eh, wanted from this project. So we'll have to keep contact on this with these customers and satisfy the requirements also. Second step is establish project infrastructure. In this, there are various sub modules. Identify relationship between project and strategic planning. So you'll have to identify various relationships and strategic planning. Actually, in project infrastructure, we basically see whatever the infrastructure are existing. Either they can be used for the new project implementation or not. So it involves all the things like back end, front end, and all other software tools, and then identify the team organization. So we will also identify whatever the teams or group of teams which are needed for the implementation of these projects. Next step is analyze project characteristics. So in this, we basically analyze the feature or characteristics of the project. So we distinguish project as object driven, or means it is object driven or product driven. So we analyze it and we categorize accordingly. And then next sub step is identify high level of project risk. So we'll also have to focus on their risk also. So we identify the level of risk which are involved while doing the project or while implementing the project. Take user requirement concerning implementation. So whatever the customer requirements are there, we also have to take input from the customer to confirm their requirements. Select development methodology and life cycle approach. So we'll have to also focus on the development methodology, which development methodology and life cycle we are going to use to develop the project. Review overall resource estimation. So after risk analysis and identification, we will have to re-estimate effort and resources of the project. Next step is identify project products and activities. So in this, basically, we identify and describe various project products. Either means it is deliverable on time or not. In this project, in this, basically, steps are to identify each and every phase, identify the project we're going to deliver, each and every stage consider as a product hierarchy, product specification, which involves module specification, system product, and management product. So you can see here this project specification will have sub category that involves module specification, which is basically done by designing and coding, and then system procedure is basically the overall integration testing, and management products that results the progress report. Sub steps, other sub steps are document generic product flows, means product flow diagram you'll have to make. One step stage output is given to input to other stage, means just for example, suppose we are going to uh, design, or we are going to complete one stage, then that output will basically the input for other, just like after getting all the requirement analysis, the next step will be the design, and after designing it we will move for the coding. So designs will be the input for coding, same as after doing coding we will go for the testing. Next step is record product instances. So for each and every product, what are the steps going to follow, that will identifying all the product instances. Produce ideal and activity networks. So each and every module have several activities. So after completing individual modules, we'll have to combine all the modules. And next step is modify ideal to take stage and checkpoints. So products are basically divided into number of products. Check each and every stage we do correctly or not. So we'll have to check each and every steps, either it's going on in a right way or not. And then checkpoint to check the progress of the project. We'll also have to check the progress of the project after completion of every stage. Next step, that is step 5, is estimate efforts for each activity. So here we will basically estimate the efforts of each activities which are involved in the project. So just like suppose staff is there, so we'll have to check how much work is need to complete the project. So if there is some more if staff is needed, then we should provide it product elapsed time. So we'll also have to focus on the time that are taken to complete the product. Non-stop resources, just like designing tools, if there are more or other designing tools as well as software is needed, then we'll have to provide. Then next one is subpart of this one is a revised plan to create controllable activities. So every phase we need to control need to break a task into the different series of manageable subtasks so that we can manage it accordingly. Break up very long activities into a series of smaller ones. So if there are various long activities, so we'll have to cut it, or we'll have to divide into different sub or smaller ones. Then next step, that is step number 6, is identify activity risk. So in this step, we identify the various risks for every activities. So identify and quantify activity based on the risk. So we'll have, first of all, we identify the risk for each activity. Then during the design phase, identify the risk, and after that, as we know that risk during or due to these risk, damage can be done. So we can identify these damages and we can recover accordingly. Identify possibilities of mistakes due to this risk and all. Then the other subtasks are plan risk reduction and contingency measures where appropriate. So after identifying this risk, we can plan to reduce this risk, and we can take some contingency measures where it is applicable. Then after that, adjust overall plans and estimates to take accounts of the risk. That include adding of some other or new activities such as training and practice. So if there is any need of training to the different resource persons, then we can do it. We can also add some new activities which can reduce the risk. Just for example, training, if training is needed, as I told you, pilot trails or information gathering is needed, so we can do it to reduce this risk. Next step is allocate resources. So after that, after risk and all, identifying risk and all, now next step is identify and allocate the resources. So we'll have to identify various staffs, type of staffs which are needed, who are needed for each activities. Staff availability are identified, staffs are provisionally allocated to tasks. Means according to the different modules or teams, we'll have to basically divide these staffs, and we allocate the resources accordingly. Next step of step number 7 is revise plan and estimate to take into account resource constants. So if the constants is also there, so stopping constant or stopping issues are there, then we can eliminate accordingly. Next step number 8 is review and publicize plan. So in this step, we review the plan accordingly. So review quality aspect of the project plan. So here we ensure each activity is completed within a quality product or not, and each activity should have exit requirements. So every after completion of every step or activity, we ensure that the quality of the product on each activity is up to mark, and we also check the quality of this before going to the next step. Next step is document plans and obtain agreements. So all the parties understand and agree to the commitment in the plans. So all the parties or teams which are involved as a software. Suppose for example, there is a testing team, coding team, designing team. So all the teams are basically agree with the agreements or whatever the plans are basically made, and after that make sure everyone understand and agree, and specify this task in a communication plan if needed. And after all this, the development of the documents is basically needed. They in these agreements and all, customers are also included in the document which are made sometimes called software SRC, SRS, software requirement specification. Now we came to the last two steps. That is step number 9, that is execute plan, and step number 10, that is lower level planning. So after reviewing the plans which we made, we basically execute the plan. And finally, when we execute the plan, means now we are going to implement all this. So at the time of implementation, we also do the low level of planning. Means suppose, as I told you, in testing team, if there is any tool requirement or any automated tool testing tools requirement, then we can do. In designing, if there is any more designer is needed, and in suppose in coding, if there is any other type of coder is needed, then we can provide it accordingly. So that is the low level of planning, and these are the references which we have taken. So guys, thank you, thanks to all.